Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Inside the Dugout with me, Coach Chappy Callanta. This is a very important episode personally for me because this is a conversation that I feel is something that needs to be that needs to happen. This conversation for me was hard to start because I have to admit I come from a place where this did not bother me. This growing up, I never had to experience what some of the people are in the panel actually experienced. And in fact, I would say I was complicit because I was quiet about it. I didn't want to talk about it, and I wanted to, live my life my own merry way. But as we have seen it unfold in the past couple of weeks, the social issues that we are having, not only in this nation but also across the world, is something that we cannot be quiet about as we move on towards this new normal. Nowadays, everybody needs to use their voice. I have a small following on social media. I have a smaller network than most, definitely smaller than the people who are going to be joining me today. But I wanted to use it uh, to impact some change. Dare I say, impact some change. And one place where change needs to happen also is really the realm of sports. So not only are we all sportsmen in the realm of sports, we're also citizens of our own countries. We are citizens of this world, and we are all in it really together. So this show is something that is going to be uncomfortable for me. It might be uncomfortable for other people also who are watching, but this is still a conversation that needs to happen. The people in this panel, of course, need no introduction. You all know them. They have all represented our country very proudly, not only locally but also internationally in competitions abroad. We have a veteran. We have somebody who just started in the league, in the PBA, and then we have somebody who is potentially one of the top, if not the top pick, whenever he does decide to go into the PBA draft. So these people have very wide clouts and very wide networks. And throughout what happened last week, we saw them and heard them speak up and not be afraid of what might be the consequences of what they say. So to me, that's very admirable. And I wanted to guest them and wanted to pick their brains as to what is happening in the world today, how we as an industry and how we as sportsmen can do better, and how we can impact the change that needs to happen in this world. So without further ado, I would like to introduce everybody in this panel. Gabe Norwood, Kobe Paras, Diego Dario. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks,
Wow,
Coach
thank you for having
Chap.
us.
Thanks for having us, Coach.
Yes. Well, first of all, I wanted to personally thank all of you for speaking up during a time when A, the country needs it the most, and B, the world really needs it the most as well. Not only do we, as a country and as a society, are suffering from a pandemic, now we have all of these issues happening locally, of course, the anti-terror bill, and of course, globally, in a global scale, the issue of racism, which started in America. So we just really wanted to have everybody on this panel, and we wanted to share our voices uh, as sportsmen and see how we can help not only the country but also the entire world. Dare we say? So the first question I wanted to ask. Let's start with, of course. Well, let's start with Gabe. Okay. So Gabe, you've played basketball for a long time already. You have played the game longer than any of us here. So what did you learn as an athlete that you were able to apply outside of sports?
Oh man, probably the biggest thing I learned as an athlete and through the game of basketball is really um, just the process of achieving a goal. I think the power in a team, the power in a united understanding and game plan and process to achieve what some may think is out of this world. Growing up as a coach's kid. My dad coaches college football in the States. Is something that I've always been around, the team aspect and knowing your role and enjoying your role and fulfilling it to the best of your ability. So I think those are the things that sports has really taught me, you know, outside of the game, as a father, as a husband, in every aspect.
Thanks, Gabe. Yes, definitely, I can relate to that. As a father and as somebody who is raising, well, for me, my three kids, sports has really taught me that responsibility and how to take it on head on. Diego, how about you?
Personally, coach, probably as an athlete, I learned how to play with a team and knowing your role. So, of course, in basketball, we all have roles: being a point guard, setting up plays, and all. If you're a big man, you're gonna rebound, protect the paint, and all. But outside of basketball, it's the same for me. You're always a part of the team. Let's say you're in class, you got to participate, you got to be a good student, or let's say even at home, when you're with your family, you always have a role, being a good brother, being a good son, supporting each other. And it's also the same being a citizen, being a Filipino. You also have a role, no matter how small or big. You always have a role in achieving things as a team and as a nation. So that's our team, probably for me personally. Yeah.
Definitely, well said. How about you, Kobe?
For me naman, what I learned in basketball is how to handle pressure, how to play under pressure, and how I can apply that in my life is when we're on the court, all eyes on us. We have to watch what we do, what we say. But when I think about it, when you're outside of the court, you have to do that as well. If you're a good human being, like you just do good. You don't really necessarily think about what other people say or what people will will have to say about what you do. So I think just that mindset of being under pressure and being able to defy the odds when people are just talking about uh, the stuff you do on the court or off the court. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned in basketball.
And I think it also is shown in your game, Kobe. Actually, if you ask me, when you
Mm.
say that you just don't care about what other people say, and I see it also in your game. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Gabe, uh, how should an athlete respond to people who tell you to stick to sports? We've heard this, right? We all saw what LeBron posted. Was it
Yeah.
LeBron? It was LeBron, right? Now you're not going to just shut up and dribble. So people, I've seen comments all over social media telling not only you guys but also some of the other athletes who spoke up, telling them just shut up and stick to what you're doing. Just shut up and play basketball. What do we say to that, and how can an athlete respond to that?
I mean, I guess it comes with the territory. At the end of the day, people just want to, a lot of people follow us to be entertained. You know what I mean? So, it's part of what we do. We're as athletes, as musicians, as actors, or whatever. The narrow kind of view of us is packaging us in this comfortable space where people see us, and it's not fair. You know what I mean? But neither is life.
Yeah,
So, at the end of the day, I think everybody in this room, we're level in terms of just being human beings, wanting to live in a better place in a world where everybody is treated equally and given the same opportunities. So, whether I have a basketball in my hand or I'm reading a book to my kids, I'm still just a human being.
yeah, definitely. Let's go to Kobe. So, Kobe, what do you say about this? Because you had a very long post about something like this, right? So,
Mhm.
can you expound on your thoughts on that?
I think as an athlete and as a privileged human being, I'm blessed to live a life where I don't have to stress about what I'm gonna eat or stress about how I'm gonna pay taxes or just stress about life in general. I think I'm blessed to have been raised by amazing parents, and when I moved to the states, I've had a family that really just embraced me for who I am. They never judged, where I came from. They didn't care about my skin color. They saw me as, a human being. And when someone tells me to just shut up and dribble, if you take basketball away from me, if you take whatever the person said to me, what he does or she does, we're just human beings. So I think we all have the right to speak up for something.
Yes, yes, I completely agree. How about you, Diego?
I think Kuya Gabe and Kobe perfectly said it. At the end of the day, we're basketball players. Yeah, that's our jobs. We get paid to play basketball, but then at the end of the day, we're also human beings. We're also citizens of the Philippines, so we also, have a right to share what we think is right and stand up for what is right.
Spoken like a true UPIS alumni. No? Actually, just want to say hey to KC. KC is listening. You can see in the UPIS represent. Um, not a lot of people know Gabe is also very very connected to UP via, of course, his lovely wife who went to the
Yeah,
university as well
through marriage, through marriage.
through marriage. Okay, so perfect. Okay, so this Diego, let's stick with you. So Diego, what made you decide, as a young person, as a young man, to take a stand for your beliefs regarding the social issues that we have today?
Um, to be honest, when I was growing up as a kid, I would have beliefs. With my family, we would talk about this, but I wouldn't really speak up. Because that's what usually people tell us to do when we were kids. Just play basketball. Don't even like um, meddle with politics or don't even talk about it. But then at the end of the day, I think me, and Kobe and probably and Gabe too, like as connected to the UP system, UP family, the UP community, I think it's not just a choice. I think it's our duty to stand up for what is right, to speak for the people who don't have a voice. And that's what made me decide, seeing other people who are oppressed, seeing other people who get discriminated. Um, these people usually can't speak out or they can't be heard or they don't have a lot of influence, let's say on social media or as a or like let's say connections. So I think it's our duty as UP students, UP players, to stand up for what is right and talk for the people who don't have that voice.
Yeah, Kobe, go ahead. I know that you want to say something about this.
I think just because I always tell people when they ask the question, how do you handle pressure when you play, or how do you handle people's expectations? I use them as motivation when I play basketball. But when it comes to stuff like this, where your platform can actually help those who don't have voices. I mean, that's what I just realized. Like, it's common sense. If you really have a heart, if you really care for your people, or for just human beings in general, you will do what is right. And I just want to show Filipinos who have that crab mentality to just let it go. It takes 90 days to break a habit. It'll take 90 days to break that mentality. So I just it's that. If if we're talking about standing for what is right, that's why people here in the Philippines can't really stand up, is because there's a lot of people holding them back, and they're afraid to talk because if they talk, they'll think they let that person down or whatever. But ako naman, I just think about what is right, and I'm a human being. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I really want to make a change because there's been so much issues that been happening for so long, but we're just blinded by or brainwashed by whatever's happening in society. So yeah.
Yeah, before I get to Gabe, I just wanted to harp on that because I believe that, well, growing up, we really had a society that was very apathetic, meaning people, if it doesn't bother them, if it doesn't bother them, they won't really do anything about it. Like if it's nothing that's in your face and really you see on a day-to-day basis, then you tend to forget about it and just live your own life. So I just want to say I want to commend you two guys for really using your platform to try and impact change. So Gabe, how about you?
Yeah, I think first off, Diego and Kobe, like you guys, I follow both of you guys, and I think I've probably liked or retweeted more of what you guys have said over the not even just now, but in past events and past things that have gone on, and just really have a huge amount of respect for you guys and finding your voice and really kind of leading this next generation. It's really inspiring stuff to see. And I can speak for probably a lot with what Coach Chappy was saying in terms of being apathetic at times. It could be, for a lot of times, it's just from a place of not knowing if your voice would be heard. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I think for me personally, the issues in the States, these are really nothing new.
Yeah.
It's stuff that's been ingrained in me as a child, having talked with my family or digging deeper into history. But at the same time, I don't know why this feels different now. Like something feels different now in terms of getting things done. And yeah, man, like seeing you, the younger guys, makes me wish I was probably a little bit more vocal when I was younger. So you guys are doing a great job,
Thank you,
Appreciate
Gabe.
that, Kuya.
So, as this pandemic, we tend to forget that we are still in a pandemic, right? So, even while all of this is happening, in the background of all of it is uh, what's happening in all over, what's happening all over the world, how people are still suffering from something that is fairly invisible with what's happening with the COVID-19. But with all of that, of course, we tend to forget that humanity will go on. Humanity will continue to live, and not even a pandemic will stop us from talking about these issues, talking about all of these changes that need to happen. So I wanted to stick with Gabe because halfway across the world, while we were suffering from a pandemic and the anti-terror bill was happening here in Manila, halfway across the world, a black person was being murdered right in front of everybody to see. And of course, we all know what happened with George Floyd. And that sparked a whole movement in America, and which really has, I would say, spread across the world. But if you look at it, uh, the Philip, and I'm very careful when I say this. Growing up in the Philippines, you are exposed to racism in a different way. You see it on TV. You see it when comedic actors do bits when they paint their faces black and then they just act like a black person. So you grow up in a society which actually kind of embraces this, which says this is funny, this is entertainment. So I wanted to ask Gabe this because as we, of course, matured as a society, our response to this kind of racism must have changed and must have adapted. So my question to Gabe and also to the boys is, did your response to racism and bigotry change through time as we progressed as a society?
For me personally, I mean, it's kind of been there. Like I was saying, I touched on a little bit in the last question. I think at the end of the day, I'm very proud Filipino. I'm very proud African American. But if I take one step into the States, I'm African American. Nobody asks, nobody considers anything. And I think that applies to the majority of, the black Philams that are out here or the African community that goes and travels around the world. And for me, my response has
Yeah.
maybe gotten a little bit more vocal in a sense. You know what I mean? I let a lot of stuff slide growing up out of a lot of times I grew up in good communities. You know what I mean? I grew up maybe being one or two black kids on the team or not really understanding, moving around so much. I moved around a lot as a kid and not feeling comfortable in my environment to know how things are going to be kind of taken and who would stick up for me. Really, maybe I think that's really why sometimes I might have been a little bit more passive with it, just not knowing who would have my back and really trusting it. But yeah, my response has gradually changed, especially having three sons now. Three sons who I want to be proud Filipino, proud African American. My wife's half Persian, proud Persian. I want them to be proud of everything that makes them who they are. And I think the time is now to be a little bit more vocal and more active in showing that.
Thank you, Gabe. Kobe, you actually grew up in the States a little bit. So you were, well, in the Philippines. We are very diverse also in the Philippines, but I'm sure in the States you also saw this happening sometimes maybe in front of you. So did this happen to you? Did you experience this when you were abroad, or did you see it being done to people while you were abroad? While you
Yeah.
were abroad?
Actually, when I moved to America, I was raised by, amazing black people, Coach William Miller Brooks and Mama Nia. When they took me in their house, they never judged, they never asked, they didn't question anything. They just took me as their own, because for us, basketball is a sport that unites people. So it was just cool that a kid from the Philippines goes to LA, and I was raised by black people, and a lot of people don't understand is this isn't just a trend. This isn't something that just happened. This has been going on for a long time. And if you look at history, deep in history, like just 100 years, that's probably when it started. But it's been going on for so long, and it just pisses me off because a lot of people take it so lightly. When at the same time, I just tell them, imagine if it was you. Imagine if it was your uncle or your sister or whoever, getting killed or murdered because of their skin color. And a lot of people won't understand that. I personally had I can't really speak up on this, but I have a family member, an uncle who passed away because of police brutality, and it's sad because
Wow.
majority of police brutality happens to African American people, and my uncle was just a Mexican Filipino, and he's still basically to other people. When you see a Mexican Filipino, he's an immigrant. You don't really have that much respect, so it just hurts because I was raised by black people. I've had an uncle who died because of police brutality. So it's just when you mix all these emotions up, you sometimes you just black out and you just speak. That's why me it was natural when I spoke up because this is so normal for people. When at the same time, if you really want change, you have to fight for what is right. And what's happening now is people are literally fighting for their life. And when I talked to my high school coach and his wife, it was sad because they told me they were ready to die. Like right now, 2020, they're ready to die for their own race. And, it's just sad because I told them it doesn't matter, who's behind you, who's talking, because I'm going to be right there by their side because they're the ones who embraced me and took me as their own. So, what this world, or basically Filipinos don't understand is, this has been going on for a while. It's not just a trend. So I'm just, very curious to see how people are going to act when it's not a trend or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Diego, both of us, we grew up here in the Philippines. We might not have seen this as blatantly as some our friends here did, but as a Filipino who grew up in the Philippines and seeing what's happening across the world, this isn't in the questions. I'm sorry, but how did you respond to it the first time when you heard about it? What was your response?
Well, what you said was true, coach. Growing up, we grew up in a society where, this wasn't really taken seriously. As Filipinos, black people out, like, as Filipinos, it was, something funny. Like what you said was true, coach. But then as I grew up, having teammates who were half Filipino, half black, um, and even people, foreign athletes, teammates
Mm.
like Bright, Ibra, all the teammates I had before, and they would sometimes, like, even if it was a joke, they would still, be insulted.
Mm.
And when I saw that, I was like, okay, it's real. Like, it's not just something that you could laugh about. Like, so I think it just comes with experience. Like, growing up, I didn't really experience, interacting with these people. But then, when I had teammates who got offended by these jokes and all, that experience changed my whole outlook into racism and bigotry. So
Yeah.
I think it's probably just that the experience of having these friends who experience these, like Kobe and Gabe, right? But then I think honestly I'm still privileged to not experience that, and I would personally, I think I would never fully understand it since I would, never experience it. I have never experienced it, right? So I
Yeah.
would never fully understand it, but I would still stand up for it because, seeing it everywhere, I don't think that's right. What's happening?
I think that's great what you just said, that as as somebody who does not completely understand what it feels like to be in the shoes
Mm-hmm.
of an African American person, or of somebody with different race, and who's being in the shoes of somebody who gets judged every time they walk down the streets, but just having that empathy to really feel that these they need our support during this time, and during this time it's a very it's a moment in time that we have to grab, and it's just nice seeing all of you just being very proactive about it. I wanted to jump because police brutality, even if this happened halfway across the world, here locally it does happen actually, right? It also happens, and we of course remember all of the victims of police brutality here in Manila or in the Philippines. It's rampant. So us as a society, us as a population, this still hits home. And I wanted to ask about that. Is it what's happening in the states is really geared towards racism, but the underlying issue is still police brutality, right? Police brutality and how they target certain races in the states. In here, it's different. We know all about Tokhang. We know all about how in the drug war, the police they just go out in the streets and sometimes without any evidence, they go out and shoot somebody. So this is something that is really very personal to us as well. So I wanted to jump to my question on the anti-terror bill because the anti-terrorism bill is gaining momentum. So for Kobe and Diego and even Gabe, how can we as a society see this ending in a way that will really help not help everybody, not only one kind of person, but really everybody? How can we how can we bring this into an ending that is beneficial to our society? And can we be really successful in junking the terror bill? Do you really think that we can be successful in junking the terror bill? And how can we get there? So maybe Kobe or Diego, whoever wants to start first.
I'll probably go first. Um,
Let's go.
first of all, I think the anti-terrorism bill. I think we have a previous bill already like set up that would protect us from terrorists, right? So I get why the government wants this to protect attacks probably a lot in Mindanao, right? There are a lot of terrorist attacks, so I get that point. But I think I read the bill personally, and I think it was just there were vague statements. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but personally, knowing how our government, our government, how like people in power take advantage of, some of their power, basically taking advantage of their power. I think it's not safe for everyone if this bill gets passed. So I think the senators or the government have to, probably take more time in
Mm,
passing this bill. I don't think they should rush it through because there are a lot of vague statements that could probably be taken advantage of. Not even just today, even like probably 20, 30 years from now, since it's gonna be there forever. So but with what's happening now, I think we're in the right path. I think we just have three or two um, government officials who have to withdraw their stand on it. So I think we were able to, um, with their voices, with the voice of the people, I think it's working. I think they're thinking about, if they're gonna pass the bill or not. They're doing a lot of reviews, and
mm,
some people are actually changing their stand on it. And I think that's great for us, for the people who are raising their voices, letting their voices be heard, because I think it's working, and I think we can be successful in junking the terror and the passing of the bill, and I think we just have to speak out more,
yeah.
as athletes and as Filipino citizens.
Yes, definitely. And I like how you said that you read the bill. Not a lot of people will take the time
Yeah.
to read a long bill. But I just want to interject some of the comments we have here. So this is from a fan of yours, Diego. She went to UPI as well, you and Kobe. So she's not the biggest basketball fan, but seeing your posts and hearing their answers now, it makes me feel glad. Thank you, Clara. And from halfway across the globe, this is actually my cousin Gabe. So this conversation is so important. So glad and proud that you brought this to the Philippines. She's watching from Los Angeles. So the
Awesome.
marches were just 1 mile away. I've been to her house, and yeah, that's I remember where I actually see whenever I see the riots happening. I've been there. I know where that is. So yeah, it hits closer to home. Kobe, so you were very outspoken about this, about the bill. Yeah,
Hmm.
the long post, and you've been quoted a lot. So do you want to clarify anything, or do you want to
I
expound on
think
your thoughts?
I like how you said clarify, because
Yeah.
here in the Philippines, you have to clarify because people will never see anyone else's perspective. They will just think about what they feel and they're gonna just stick to that judgment. But yeah, to clarify, I'm for the bill just because if you read it, it will harm a lot of people here in Manila. And the reason why I'm speaking for Manila is because I'm born and raised here. Most of my life I spent it here in Manila. But if you look deep in what's going on in our country, it's basically what's going on in the States. You know, United States is, you have so much states. Here in the Philippines, you have so much islands. You're not really going to know what's going on in every island if you're only focusing on one. Does that make sense? So, like,
Yeah.
if you focus on Mindanao, there are people dying, innocent people dying because they have no help. But what pisses me off is if we had such an amazing government, if we had people who never stole money and who cared for our citizens,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't be focused
Yeah.
on our own blood killing us, because that's happening in the States as well. When you talk about Black Lives Matter, there are a lot of black people who kill black people, and Gabe understands that. You know, there's a black on black crime that happens, and it hurts because
Separate argument.
while they're doing those crimes, you could just focus on helping your own, being a better person. So it just sucks that there are Filipinos out there who are still trying to kill other Filipinos when we could, you know, there's other people and stuff that we're going through, and it's just sad because that's what I'm just trying to say. I'm speaking up for what I know, you know, and my opinion will never matter to most of these people, you know, and it's okay with me because I'm just speaking for what I think is right. And a lot of people will never be as educated as me, and I get it. Not a lot of people are privileged to go to high school and college, but if you have a heart, you would understand. And, you know, I'm for the people in Mindanao. Just like what I said, I've had an uncle who died from police brutality. The people who are dying in Mindanao are probably dying from police and the Abu Sayyaf. And it's, you know, those are fellow Filipinos as well, and it hurts because, you know, we should be standing up for something else better. And, you know, if there's people out there in Mindanao who need help and who need a voice, you know, I'm willing to help them out, just because it's just sad that, you know, we're still killing our fellow Filipinos for islands and whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's,
Uh,
that's
I, I
just
wanted I wanted to correct you really quickly. It does matter what you do, Kobe. You know what I mean? People, even if this is where we as a society need to realize that our voices matter, no matter if you're one person or 100. When our society realizes that our voices matter, and that's what you guys have been doing. You've been making your voices heard. You've been broadcasting what your thoughts, and that is really how you are going to impact change. It doesn't matter if we are not in office. If we are brave enough, and you guys have shown that you guys are brave enough to speak your mind and not be afraid of the consequences, because you know that your actions, you know that your intentions are pure, then I encourage you to continue speaking up. Really speak up for what you believe in, because we need more of those people. Gabe, care to interject?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what Kobe and Diego said, I don't think anybody's completely saying this isn't needed, the bill's not needed, or anything like that. I think it's definitely just a matter of clarification, just like Kobe said, even for his
Yeah.
own voice. You know what I mean? You have to be able to clarify things just to where they can't be twisted. You know what I mean? You have that security in that in the people who are making the decisions. And, you know, to answer the second part of the question, can it be successful? And I agree
Yeah.
with Diego. You know what I mean? I feel like voices are being heard from, you know, athletes to anybody. Like you said, we're all human beings. And I think, you know, a lot of this is being taken into consideration now, especially given it's a global pandemic. People have the time to just sit down and read the bill, or people have the time to sit and voice and discuss and put thoughts and words into one place. So, you know, I'm optimistic. I'm naturally an optimistic person by nature, and you know, it's just a matter of having, you know, confidence in the powers that be to write this and to get it done.
Yeah, I was speaking with my buddies before this telecast, and uh, we all agreed if only the people had trust in leadership, then this would be a different scenario, because we are putting in this bill, we are putting a lot of trust. If this does pass, then the terror council will be a very powerful entity. And I think most of what we see in terms of the backlash is because there is a complete lack of trust or distrust. There's just people just don't trust the government. And when what's happening is that we do not want to let a council decide whether I am being a terrorist or not. So, yeah, just to agree with all of your points, our voices do matter, and I want to encourage everybody, as like what these gentlemen are doing, to say something. no matter how small your platform is, or no matter how big your platform is. I wanted to jump back to what's happening in the States, Gabe. So this has been answered probably, but I just wanted to harp on this. So why should the Filipino people pay attention to something that is happening in America? Now, I'm telling you this from a person who grew up idolizing Americans, idolizing Michael Jordan, idolizing Kobe Bryant, idolizing people in the NBA. But at the same time, I grew up going to the groceries and seeing, sorry to say, but products that will, whitening products, products that are promoting something very, very different. So for somebody who grew up in that space, and even my son now, he's kind of in that space already where he's confused. He's asking about race. He's asking about, why is this person better in basketball? Why is this person not better in basketball? So why do we need to care as a Filipino per people? What can Filipinos learn from Black Lives Matter?
I think I'll answer the second part first.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think that touches back onto what Filipinos can learn from this movement, from Black Lives Matter. I think it goes back to what I said in my approach to what sports has taught me. That unity and sports. We all been on teams and had teammates that may have come from the province, may have come from privilege, may have come from this background, this struggle. And at the end of the day, if you can package that together into something that everybody believes in and is fighting for, and is right, an ultimate goal, I think, whether you're Filipino or African American or European or it doesn't matter. I think it really is. It's just a global goal that we should all have in terms of how we treat each other and the opportunities that are available at the end of the day. And I think there's a lot of parallels, like we said, on what's going on here and what's going on in the States. I don't want to dig too deep into the history side of things, but just given, like Kobe touched on it, the approach has been systematic since slavery. You know what I mean? Like, if you can go from the times of being a slave in the States and being considered not even human being. Like, imagine, this is in the census, like in history, slaves weren't considered people. They were considered livestock. They were considered like, what do you own? I own pigs, I own some chickens, and I own X amount of slaves. You know what I mean? Like, and that's been the constant, one step after another, after another, after another. And I think the persistence and kind of the motivation behind the African American community can draw a lot of parallels to the power of the people, like the power of people, like everything. It all comes full circle in its own little way. And just for me personally, I just really appreciate Kobe, Diego, and just everybody who's reached out personally and seem to understand what is being fought for, not just this one-off scenario. Like the statement we made, it could have been me. Those are the realities that a lot of us grew up with and lived with, and talks that my dad had to have with me at 11, 12 years old on why things are the way they are, and trying to understand it. And it's still here. You know what I mean? So, like I said before, it just feels different now. And it feels like voices are really being heard.
So how can the Filipino people, how can we help? Aside from sharing our thoughts, aside from sharing our support for the movement, how can we help, and how can somebody help Black Lives Matter?
I think the biggest thing is really, kind of challenging yourself and really educating yourself as much as you feel like you need to. There's a lot of African and Black history here in the Philippines, from the natives, from the Aitas and everything like that. And even from soldiers from the States coming over and kind of like the whole Buffalo Soldier movement in the States, and planning here and fighting for the Philippines, kind of flipping sides. So I think education is key. And a lot of times just listening. You have guys who are Filipino that might be born here, Black and Filipino. You have guys, CJ Perez, and who grew up here, Calvin, and things like that haven't been able to express themselves and express the hurt they may have felt. So, you know, it might seem far away, but at the same time, I'm sure it's right here in front of a lot of faces, you know, over time. So I think it's just opening up conversation really and really
Yeah.
getting down to the heart of it.
Kobe and Diego, do you have anything to add on to this? How can, well, we already talked about it a little bit, but what have you learned? If you did learn anything, what have you learned from what has been happening across the world or halfway across the world?
I think,
Uh,
I mean, just like what Gabe said, if you educate yourself, like if you go back to your roots, like Filipinos, these Aita peoples, Filipinos are dark skinned. And when we were colonized by the Spaniards and Americans, the racism that was with them kind of was thought in our heads or brainwashed in us. That's why, like what you said, if you see like in the mercury drugs, there's a whole section for whitening or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's just crazy that, people don't understand that they have to be proud of who they are and where they really come from. And it's just really sad that us being brainwashed is the real society. And
mm,
modern day slavery is actually real. If you think about it, like having a katulong and not treating that katulong like your son or your dad, that's slavery for me. That's why me personally, if I'm gonna have someone who's gonna help me in my house, I'm gonna treat them like I'm gonna treat my dad. Or if I have a daughter, like I'm not just gonna treat them like slaves. Because
yeah,
if you think about it, there are a lot of people out there who use these people for them to get food, for them to wash their clothes. Like I get it, it's a benefit here in the Philippines, but if you really think about it, it's just like what white people used to do to black people. It's slavery, and it's just sad because a lot of people don't realize it because we're brainwashed into it. So that's why, you know, now that I'm in an age where people will take me seriously, that's when I know that my voice matters because I'm not just gonna let anything slip. Even just if it's in the club or if it's a song you say the N word, I'm not. It's no, it's not a trend. It's a lifestyle. It's if you
okay,
realize how you dress up, if you realize the music or the sports we watch, they're all you know we all look up to the African American culture. You're not gonna find a lot of people who say they like white people in general. Trust me, but you can see the lifestyle and the culture that these African Americans have brought in the world. And if you take them out, the world's gonna be dull, like white people. Exactly. If you want me to see color, I'm gonna say that straight to you in your face. You're just gonna be like a white person, dull with feelings and whatever. So, you know, that's
okay.
just me. I'm
All
really
right.
fun.
Diego, how about you?
I think what they said is right, Coach. Historically, we've our country has been influenced by a lot of countries. With colonization, we've learned this in grade school that colonial mentality exists. So I think it's just right for people to stand up for against racism and what's happening in America. Because imagine if people accept what's happening, people accept police brutality, if people accept racism. Imagine the influence that we will get as a country, as Filipinos, looking up to America, looking up to the Western culture. We're we're gonna take that as a normal too, like racism and police brutality,
Yeah,
right? So when people are fighting against it, I think that's a great thing because you know them influencing us. Filipinos are getting educated, like what Kuya Gabe said. If you educate yourself, it opens up a lot of experiences if you engage in conversation. And it's not just in racism. If you engage in conversation against what's happening here in the Philippines or in other countries, your mind just opens up to different ideas. And
yes,
Kuya Gabe was correct with listening to other people who have these experiences. We might not experience it, but if other people experience it, we would have the idea, oh, that this happened. So, listening, it comes with empathy as well. If you're
yeah,
empathetic as a human being, growing up, we weren't taught to be, bad to other people. We weren't taught to discriminate. We weren't taught to be racists. Like, you know, if you're a nice human being, you would just care for what's happening for them. Like, they're human beings, and what's happening to them is not right. So I think it's just right for us to be empathetic to them and to understand what they're going through and to fight for what is right as well.
Well said, Diego. And actually, I wanted to go back to what Gabe said. And we have to look at history here, right? We can't really just say, because it's really what you will use to educate the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. And this came from somewhere. It's been going on for a long time. Granted, maybe I actually read an article that nowadays it's not as blatant as, let's say, slavery, which actually might be worse, because then it's something that's already embedded in society that we don't really see it anymore. Things like not having the same pay or not having the same opportunities. And if you think about it, and Casey actually said this, it's hard to trust a government that condones selective justice. It's the same for the states, and it's the same here in the Philippines, actually. And I don't want to go into the politics of the state, because that's something else. It's a whole different conversation, and about Trump and everything else. But here in the Philippines, it's the same. If we cannot trust the government because it does condone selective justice, then we cannot trust a bill or a law that is supposed to be taking care of us, but will end up really marginalizing us. So yeah, I just want to make a point that we have to look at history, and that history will be one of our greatest teachers. Okay, so moving on. Whew, okay, so I want to go back to sports a little bit, but this still relates to the issues we have at hand. Um, we are all athletes here. Dare I say, I am an athlete, or I used to be an athlete. How can we have a conversation about social issues, given that some organizations try to embody a macho attitude, where sometimes speaking up is translated as being weak? And I've experienced this firsthand, wherein if I wanted to speak up, then people will tell, "Ang reklamador mo naman," meaning you like to make complaints. You like complaining, and you're seen as a sissy. You're seen as weak. You're seen as somebody who just doesn't want to do, doesn't want to work, just wants to complain. So how can we get through this, or how can we get past this as an industry of sports? Gabe, can you relate to this?
In a sense, I think you know the struggles of the past, and just in terms, I'll speak on the one part of the discussion that we're kind of having. A lot of times in the Black community, you are told to kind of just kind of toughen up, basically. You know what I mean? Take it and use it as fuel, use it as motivation moving forward, and things like that. But at the same time, I think that times are just so different now. Just the opportunity and availability to really be heard outside of your comfort zone, and the people that you're comfortable discussing with. Like, it's easy for us to be in the locker room and maybe having these conversations, and in our small little cliques and our little stuff like that in terms of sports. But to have platforms like this, and to really voice our opinions, I think is kind of gives you that reassurance in what you're feeling is going to be heard and needs to be heard from other people who are probably going through the same thing. So that's just where I think where I stand with that in terms of the macho attitude.
So you personally, did you ever experience anybody calling you out for being outspoken, or for being, speaking your mind?
I think from time to time, I can't pinpoint a specific situation. I've always been the type that like to lead by example, and try to tear down stereotypes just by the way I act and approach and kind of do things. And, I've been definitely told to pick that up too, whether it's the sports side of being more aggressive in a sense, or being somebody who, you know what I mean, just to appease other people, appease coaches or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Kobe, has this ever happened to you? Has anybody, called you a crybaby or weak, or for voicing your opinion?
Yeah, every day. If you look deep into it, yeah, every day. I mean, jealousy, envy, and greed is taught and brainwashed in people's minds and hearts. It's the sad reality.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter what you do. It's not even. I'm speaking up for people
No, no,
in
go.
general. It's just it's normal to have hate. Especially in the Philippines. It's really taught into us. So growing up, I just had to really stand my ground and stand really tall and just take all your judgment and just use it as fuel. But there's times where it's too much, but that's when you realize who you are as a man. Are you gonna let that those people speak ruin your mood, or are you just gonna be mature about it and you know just let it be? Because if you guys watch me this season, there's a lot of things I let be, and I just try to stay true to myself and just try to have fun no matter what. And it's possible for someone who's people think is flawless. I have so much flaws, and that's the reason why I'm a better human being, is because I accept my flaws and I accept failure. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of, is failure and just um, letting their people down. If
Hmm.
if you really have something to say, you shouldn't care about what people say. That's it.
Brave and very, very admirable, Kobe. How about you, Diego?
Personally, I just experienced it on social media. People telling me to, not speak up, just stick to basketball. That's what you do. But I personally, I don't believe in stereotypes like that. If I don't believe in society dictating what you should do and what you should not do. Like if you believe something is right, I think you should continue to do it, continue to speak up for it. And at the end of the day, it's just about creating discourse, engaging in a lot of discourse, because I didn't just blindly have these kinds of ideas and
Yeah.
opinions. I didn't just blindly have them. Like I got it from discourse, I got it from conversations with human beings who experienced it. I got it from educating myself. And if you think that's what's right, I think there's nothing wrong in standing up for that. And I don't think stereotypes should stop you from speaking up for people who need it.
Great. Our good friend, Diego Dario, head coach of LaSalle last year. Hi, Coach G. So he says, you're right. We should be proud when people say, "Mabasa ka na lang." Trust that people look up to you guys more than those who are in leadership. So we influence them more than we can think of. Definitely, especially the three of you guys who are here with your wide scope of influence. I dare say that you guys influence more people than some of our leaders here. Uh, Thank you for everybody who have their posted their comments. If you have any questions for the guys, we actually have a little bit more time, about 10 minutes more before we have to wrap the show up. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask, and we'll try to get the guys to answer it. Our good friend Drew Arellano, you guys know Drew, right? Says what's up.
Yeah.
This is a
Thank you.
Somebody said this. So Junji said, "I wish they would talk more about the double standard here, where people in power who break the rules are given leniency, while the weak and poor are jailed and punished for no reason." No, yeah, well, I think we have Junji, but yeah, just to drive home the point, we all believe that the powers that be here in the Philippines, that's the reason why there's a pushback in the anti-terror bill. We want to push it back because we don't see it being fair to everybody, or as a wider population. We see it being used for power by the council. We see it being used for power by the government, and it needs to be amended. Definitely, there needs to be a bill that will protect us from terrorism. But what a terrorist is, that distinction has to be cleared up. Uh, you guys, you want to say something about this, or you're good? I don't know. But I think we've been.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
That was
yeah,
perfectly
I
said
totally
for
agree
me.
with
But I
what.
know Diego had
Yeah,
something. I saw.
Go ahead, Diego.
yeah, I totally agree with Junji. It's true. Like there's selective justice here in the Philippines and in the states as well. So I don't think that's right. I believe that no one is above the law, and no one should be above the law. So I think there shouldn't be selective justice here in the Philippines, and I think people should fight for it because that's not right.
Yeah, and again, it all stems with leadership. And uh, just a segue, I had the previous show was about captains and how you are supposed to be as a leader. And I think that sportsmen, I hope you guys agree, we can actually make great leaders in society. Growing up in sports, growing up in a team environment, growing up in a place where you have to either be a follower or a leader or both. I believe that sportsmen, uh, we really have what it takes to be good leaders here. Okay, so we have one more question. I'm just making sure I didn't forget anything. So tying it all together, how can athletes and sportsmen expand on their role in society? I'm going to start with Gabe here, since Gabe, again, we are the same age. Go ahead.
I mean, for me personally, I think a lot of the ways that athletes and sportsmen can expand is listening to the younger generations. Listen to a podcast with Steve Kerr, Pete Carroll, who's an NFL coach, and Coach Pop, that just recently, and they really spoke on the younger generation and really the potential that's there and the understanding and resources and everything that is available. And I think the confidence that the younger generation has in who they are, I think will help expand athletes and just people in general through this next wave or this next generation of leaders. I think that's a huge way to expand because like Kobe and Diego are doing, they're so tapped in to what's going on and they're not thinking in their own little comfort zones. You know what I mean? They're thinking outside of themselves. And I think they share common kind of processes as many others in their age class. You know what I mean? So I think, getting out of old kind of frameworks on how things are supposed to be and listening to younger generations and powerful voices that they have can really expand and take, the Philippines to the next level and globally, just take humanity to a better place.
Definitely. Diego, how about you?
I think it's just about, if athletes and sportsmen can expand their role in society, it's just speaking up to the things that they're educated about, things that they believe in, because that way their influence just doesn't stop in the basketball world. So their influence, when they do that, their influence grows bigger. And if you stand up for something that's right, I don't think there's something wrong with having a bigger influence or, you know, standing up for what is right, since there's nothing wrong with that, right? And
Yeah,
if you have that bigger influence, you create change, people who you create people who have, a better sense of what's really happening here in the Philippines and around the world as well.
before I get to Kobe, I want to say hey to Tony. Tony Ataide. You guys know Tony Ataide, right? Yeah, great comment. Working with athletes all my career, I realized that,
Saitama.
yeah, what they do on the playing field is what they do and not who they are. Very well said. They're all inspirations to millions of people of work ethic, determination, dedication to their craft. All can be applied into any aspect of life. The sports they play are merely vehicles of showing the world their true colors as human beings. Tony always has a way of putting, putting soul into words and making it really hit home. So thank you, Tony, for giving us that insight. And I agree, completely agree. Whenever I see, and it's much easier doing this now because now there's social media. We just saw Michael Jordan the past how many weeks, whatever, going through his final season, and all of that stuff we didn't know. We weren't able to see behind the scenes. Nowadays, we see what athletes have for breakfast. We see what athletes have when they train. We athletes are so connected to the world, and because of this connection, and because of what you have really a bigger responsibility there. I say. I mean, the responsibility is really increases, and it's true. How we act outside of the court and outside of the field really is what makes us into the heroes that you guys have the potential to be. So, Kobe, let's go to you. So, back to that same question: how can athletes and
Um,
sports?
I think just first be educated, just know what you're standing for, and just be ready for what the struggles you have to go through because it's not easy. No one's ever thought to me that everything's gonna be easy. You're gonna have to go through some struggles to achieve what you want. So if you're really standing up for something, just know that there's going to be a lot of people talking. There's going to be a lot of judgment coming your way, but you have to, stand 10 toes deep and just make sure that you're true to yourself and don't be a hypocrite because that's the last thing you want to be. So that's all I have to say.
Kobe, I wanted to ask you something. You have in your Instagram bio, you have in there, not an influencer. What do you mean by that? And by the way, I mean I completely respect that. Yeah. No, I completely respect that because that means that I mean just in your own words, what does that mean? But I have my own interpretation of it. But what does that mean?
Mhm.
Not an influencer.
I think if you're on social media, there's a lot of people who think it's. I'm not judging, no hate, but there's a lot of
Yeah,
people who are influencers that they kind of use their brand or whatever as I don't know. There's good ones, there's bad ones. I'm not gonna judge, but me myself, I'm a human being first. I'm not an influencer. I'm not a basketball player. Not a student. Take all those things you've seen from me before. Strip it all off. I'm just a human being. So uh, if I do influence something, I hope it's something good. But at the end of the day, I just want to be me. I want to be known for that person who just lives his life the way he wants to and never cares about anyone's judgment. And I hope a lot of people tries that out one day because a lot of people's judgment won't make you happy. So that's it.
very well said. Gabe, what do you think about this new crop of players? You know, I mean, these guys. Not calling you old. Don't worry, not calling you by no means. But what do you think about these new crop of players and how they are not only as players but also as as human beings? What can you say about them? These this new generation of players coming out.
Yeah, it's just really uplifting, just to know how the game has provided. Because at the end of the day, I know Kobe said the word privilege a lot, and it is. It's a blessing to be able to play the game of basketball here especially in the Philippines, where basketball is number one. You know what I mean? Outside of women's volleyball is probably like the biggest competition, but
Mm.
um, it's a blessing, and it's awesome to see that as much hard work as these guys are putting in to get to the levels that they're at, they're also expanding and trying to do more than that. You know what I mean? They're not defined by the game, but they're definitely blessed by it. You know what I mean? So it's really uplifting to see these two especially, but young players all throughout the
Yeah,
league, the UAP, the NCAA have really taken time to educate themselves, to voice, and you know what I mean. Everybody's platform is different, and using it is used differently too. It doesn't mean just go out and just feel like you got to speak on everything, but educate yourself. What comes to pulls at your heart, you know what I mean. Act on it. But I
yeah.
really appreciate this. I learned just as much.
Yeah.
Reading your guys' tweets and really trying to educate myself as well. So I appreciate you guys.
KC, one of the biggest fans of QP, also said Kobe and Diego, or even Gabe. Do you have any plans of considering public service in the future? Shout out to Martin Reyes, who's a counselor over in I think Cavite. I know
Yeah.
Diego. Do you see yourself being a counselor?
In the present moment, probably not yet, but we'll never know what happens. You'll never know what I experience in life. So we'll see. We'll see.
How about you? How about you, Kobe? You see yourself being
Uh,
in
I see
politics?
myself more of a guru rather than being in politics, to be honest. But nah,
Wow.
I don't. Just I don't. Government's a different topic. I just don't want to talk about it. Just because they make money out of us. I don't want to take anyone's money. That's it. That's all I have to say.
That's a good point. Gabe, we call you the president. By the way, are you okay with Monica? They call you the president of the PBA, right?
Yeah, I gotta let that one go. I don't look like the current president. I think I look a little bit more like Obama, but yeah, politics. I don't know if it's for me. Definitely just trying to uplift people and keep building good relationships. I think is a great start.
Definitely. We're going to talk about relationships. The relationships we have, not only with the people around us, but the people who we even if Kobe says he's not an influencer, the people who we influence with our actions and with our deeds. that's really where all of the biggest changes can be said or can be done. Guys, this was very, very insightful. I learned a lot from you guys. This was really a conversation that really needed to happen. And I'm sure that the conversation will not stop here. I'm sure that people will keep on sharing, whether it is about Black Lives Matter, whether it is about junk terror bill, or anything that is socially relevant to society. I believe that athletes need to really use our or your platforms to share your thoughts and share your opinions, and just like what Diego said, just have a discourse, have a conversation, whether it be online or with somebody live. Have a conversation. Just want to encourage everybody to do so. Final thoughts, Gabe. What's in store? We didn't really get into what's happening in the PBA,
Not
but
sure.
but what's in store for
Yeah,
you? Go ahead.
guess we're supposed to meet towards the end of the month, the 23rd, to really come through with some type of decision moving forward. But as of now, just trying to make the most of these days with the family and just try to stay in some type of shape. You know, I got to run around and chase Diego in this conference.
Diego, are you guys anywhere near going back to practice, Diego, or are you guys just doing stuff on your own?
I think they're planning to go back to practice. I think next month, but we all have to get tested. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Still, I think nothing's set in stone yet. So they're just still planning, and there's gonna be meetings about it. But yeah, final thoughts is just I just want to thank you, coach, for making this
Oh yeah.
conversation happen. It really needed to happen, and I hope a lot of people um, talk more about things that matter to society. So thank you again, coach. Thank you.
Sure, Diego. Do you wanna invite them, or to plug something, plug anything? You're the odd one out here. You know what we mean. But you wanna plug anything? Go ahead.
I'm good, coach. I'm good. I'm good.
Very good. Okay. I'm gonna go back to you, Gabe. But Kobe, how about you? Final thoughts from this
Uh,
conversation, and what's gonna happen to you in the next couple of days? I know what's gonna happen to you, but maybe.
yeah. I just want to thank you, Coach, for having us. I just want to thank Kuya Gabe, Jex, just being able to express ourselves and to not be able, not people see us to, perhaps people not see us be basketball players for once. We get to talk about stuff that really matters, and I never do this. I don't go
Yeah, I
online
know.
and talk to
Yeah.
people. So this is just something huge for me, and I hope there are a lot of people out there who can relate and can use their platform, and just hope everyone stays safe and just fight for
Yeah.
what is right.
I actually wasn't sure, Kobe, if you were going to accept the invitation because, like you said, you rarely do come out in public and
Mhm.
have interviews such as this. So thank you to you and Diego for really sharing your insights. Gabe, I forgot to ask you, do you want to plug anything, or do you want to work on? Do you have anything to plug?
Man, I just continue to pray for everybody's safety. Like at the end of the day, like we mentioned, there's still a pandemic going on.
Yes.
And, it's still it's a lot to handle right now. But like everybody else said, Coach Chappy, it's good to see you, man. Haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
And,
Yeah.
it's good to get down and talk about some things. I probably could have kept going. I'm sure these two guys could have probably kept going too. But
Yeah.
it's really appreciated.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're gonna have another conversation in the future. But again, thank you very much, guys, for accepting the invitation, and thank you for always speaking your mind on social media. Keep on doing that. Don't stop. Like what I told Kobe, your voice matters, and your opinion really matters in this time. So again, thank you very much for an insightful conversation. I'll let you guys go. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Coach.
Guys, stay safe.
All right. So thank you again to Kobe, to Gabe, and to Diego. That was a very insightful conversation. Like what Gabe said, we could have gone for longer, but we got to be realistic. Maybe in the future we can have a longer conversation. Thank you to everybody who listened and watched and viewed. And if you missed the show, this will be up on my page, Chappy Callanta, Coach Chappy Callanta on Facebook. The audio version will be coming out soon. Fingers crossed on Spotify and on Apple Music. Thank Thank you again to Tripod Network for agreeing to be to house the show on your podcast lineup. Thank you again to my wife Between, who always helps me in these telecasts, these broadcasts. I keep saying telecasts, not on TV. And again, thank you for all of the people that commented. I couldn't say hi to everybody, but you guys rock. I'm going to see you guys on Thursday. On Thursday, we're going to have LA Tenorio. We're going to be talking more about what made him the Iron Man that he is in PBA basketball, his habits, everything that he does on a daily basis that makes him successful. So that's going to be a good show. But again, thank you very much to Kobe. Thank you to Gabe. And thank you to Diego for accepting my invitation. You guys are awesome. And to everybody out there, stay safe. We're still in a pandemic. Stay at home. Be active, but stay at home. And just be safe. God bless everyone. Bye.